La Vuelta. We played with the coasts, and it was a rough game for some. New leader as well by the end of the day. The red jersey passing to Cofidis and Jesus Herrada. Top of the day, 82 Le Mondial. Having a fantastic run with Alexander Genius. Today, the run is an uphill one, and in fact, very much so. The road is tipping up to the sky, and just look at that finish. If you want drama, you're going to find it at the end of the day, as if we haven't had enough already, with 32 riders up the road. So what's in store? We're saying farewell to the coast, and we're heading inland. Temperatures, well, they've been hovering around 19 Celsius, but it's getting a little bit warmer, you'll be pleased to know, around 23. And the prospect of rain just starting to ebb and flow, but we're hoping we're going to stay dry.
C'est 3 journées difficiles, surtout trois arrivées.
This is Thibaut Pinot saying there's going to be 3 tough days, moreover 3 short finishes, unless they're the Covadonga. But today and tomorrow, very steep finishes. It'll be a real show. Well, today, the final, the Alto de Camperona, very, very steep. Short and sharp, you might say. 8 kilometres, 7.5, but really it's the last part, 2.8 kilometres, that nudge the 20% marker. And for the favourite, De La Cruz, he knows, as well as everyone else, it's going to be tough.
Una subida muy dura.
Yeah, very, very hard. The pace will be really fast. So we'll have to give it absolutely everything. It's a climb where we're going to suffer a lot. And we'll see if it's worth paying that price by the time we get to the end. Well, if it isn't going to be De La Cruz, they've done a good job of putting Henao up there. Here's Izagirre. This is Jon Izagirre. Tough climb, not long but very explosive. In the last few days, we've seen some differences between the favourites. I think today there may well be a few of those. He's got brother Gorka in the break, by the way. What does Simon Yates think about today's prospects? And indeed, now having seeded the red jersey, is the pressure off?
Going to give any tactics away. But for the climb, yeah, we've done it before. I think most of the guys in the race know it already. It's pretty filthy, but it's only short, so we'll see. Last time there's quite big time gaps already anyway, so I'm expecting the same.
There we are, expecting the same. Short, sharp, staccato delivery, and it may well be that that serves him very well if he's in for a strike towards the end. The strike of the day stage. That's going to be a tough call because you should see who's up the road. Lumpy terrain, more than that. In fact, properly mountainous. There we are. Theatre of dreams and indeed of drama awaiting us today. In fact, we're on the first of our Category 1 climbs right now, heading inexorably to the Camperona at the end. There is our finish line. 19 Celsius at the start, 16 at the finish, but the chance of rain has ebbed. It's gone away. And so dry roads, despite the chill, and indeed the chill, with the chill comes the chase, I guess you might say. Team Sky have got Sergio Luis Henao up the road, and don't mistake this for the peloton. We'd forgive you for thinking that. But there are 32 riders up the road. Yeah, you heard that right. The red helmet there of Edoardo Ravazzi up towards the fore. And in fact, this group strung out. And I guess you might say having some fun. Well, they're going to be allowed to today by the looks of things. Luis Angel Mate, the King of the Mountains jersey wearer and owner for the time being, is up there. He'll be hoping to get to the fore of this break, but it's strung out, as you can see, because of little declines, rises and falls within the test itself. In fact, we won't be climbing proper until the ticker says 82 kilometres to go. And we'll wait and see if that is the case. In a few moments' time, we'll get an absolute exact location. But look at who's here. Gorka Izagirre working for his brother Jon up the road. Ben Gestar from 82 Le Mondial. Roscoff and Toons, both from BMC. 3 from Bora, including Rafa Majka. 5 from Lotto Soudal, including Thomas de Gent, as always. Movistar have got Oliveira, the Portuguese, up there. We've got De Plus and Seri from Quick Step Floors. Ben King, again, the best placed of the breakaway, is up here for Dimension Data with Kudis close at hand. Zakharin is here with Restrepo as wingman. We've got Enau from Team Sky. Hindley from Sunweb. Boca Mollema has also made it with 2 teammates, including Feline. Ravazzi is there for UAE Elements, as we've already mentioned. Yetzer Bol from Burgos with Aramburu and Rodriguez. That's Christian Rodriguez from Caja Rural. Mate, the King of the Mountains owner, is on your screen right now. He's also there with Bravko and Rodriguez. They've posted them in order of their deficit overall. So the first name you would have seen, King of the Hills, Benjamin King, 2 stage wins to his name. Can he possibly get another? Well, he wears the combined jersey, as you can see. He's nursing it just for now on behalf of Valverde, who's in the green jersey. So it'll be an unfamiliar, perhaps white jersey, not that dissimilar from Dimension Data out front. It's a long snake of riders. Now, the big question is, who's chasing? Well, we're not quite on the categorized climb just yet. In fact, we're about, 5 kilometers away from the foot of it. And it's a proper test just beyond the mid-section of today's race. But it's the kick at the end of the day that's going to be a real kick in the pants and maybe in the teeth for some of those who are hoping to go deep into this race as a contender. Sean, the profile today is a stinker. Camperona awaits. We've been here before, but it's the last 2.8 kilometers where the hurt really comes. It's a stinger.
It is a stinger, and we did hear Simon Yates talking there. It's not a long one, but on the route book they're talking about over 8 kilometers of a climb, but the final 3 kilometers is the real stinger. So in the earlier part, I think a lot of the riders will be thinking of that final number of kilometers, and they will be trying to hold off, because looking at the history as well, if you go early, you can pay for that final inside the final 3 kilometers to go. So it will be very interesting when we can see the advantage here, 8:30 at the moment for the breakaway. So they are controlling, because again, a huge breakaway getting away, 32 riders, as you say, Carlton. It's been going on the past 3 days. We have had, very big breakaways managed to get away. And I suppose history, if it repeats itself here, the last 2 bits we had, it was a breakaway who succeeded in getting the stage victory.
Was indeed. Ryder Ezula in 2014, 2 years after he'd taken the Giro d'Italia, you may remember. Froome and Joaquin Rodriguez were busy battling with Contador, so there's a separate GC battle. They did manage to gap Contador, and then 2016, 2 years ago, Lagoutin it was, that took the day, but Quintana managed to distance Contador and Froome, who again were engaged in their own private battle. So whenever we come here, it seems to be a split. The way that the stage has been designed as well, it garnered a breakaway very quickly at the Alto Madeira. That was just a Category 3 test. In fact, Thomas de Gent took the points going over there. No points, I might add, for Luis Angel Mate, who was up there, but I think he'll roll through and try and grab a few here at the Puerto de Darna, which is the climb that we're just about to engage with, despite the fact that we've been climbing for about the last, 40 kilometers? So it's almost unkind that they only categorize the last bit. That said, on our final climb today, we have a series of steps that lead, as Sean was saying, to the last 2.8 kilometers, and that's where the real climb begins. 3%, 2.5%. Why are they categorizing it from 8.2 Ks out? No idea, because really the climbing doesn't begin until you get 6 Ks from home, and even that, before you get to the 2.8, includes very flat sections where it's difficult to set a rhythm. Those how long are they going to take to finish 2.8 kilometers, nudging 20%, Sean?
Well, it's going to take the big sprinters are going to take them a lot of time to get up that final 3 kilometers. Yeah. The front of the race here, if you're racing for a stage, depending on if the breakaway is fighting for the win, or will it be the main peloton, but definitely the general classification men, they will climb it very fast in the end, as they always do, because a mountain top finish is an important one.
Huge test then at the very end of the day. Look at that virtual ranking. It's interesting. You've got Rafa Micah in there and Lawrence de Plus, both of whom are in the break, as is Ben King, who's the virtual leader as it stands at the moment. But Jesus Herrada and his boys are starting to push on. In fact, they've been up there doing a fair bit of work, but it is a mix further back down as to who is going to take on the test. This is not the peloton. This is the breakaway. Joey Roscoff and Dylan Turns are up here. Americans running very well in this race. Sepp Kuss was part of the break, Sean, and got called out of it. I'm not sure whether it was by his own team or whether he's just it can't be that he was a danger to the break. So clearly they're thinking of George Bennett and Stephen Kruijswijk, who are going to need help a little bit later on. Jesus Herrada had also rolled into the break, and then 30-odd other riders told him where to go, so back he went as well. But 5 teams didn't make the break, Sean, and they're important ones.
Yes, well, some of the ones that are not in the breakaway, not represented up there, and we know the reason why, because when you look at Mitchell and Scott, for example, Movistar team, Movistar in that breakaway as well. Nelson Oliveira, the Portuguese rider, he was there, but he knocked off as well and seemed to wait for the peloton, so we can understand the reason there that he's needed back in main peloton. Team Sky is an interesting one. It's not the norm you would see with Team Sky in breakaways. You don't see the riders, you know, being allowed or getting into breakaways in the big tours, but they're a bit off the pace in this race at the moment. Not out of the race at all by any means, because Kwiatkowski is still very much in here, but he's a bit further down, I think, than they would have liked him to be at this moment. So yeah, there's riders in the breakaway that are up here for stages, and other ones are thinking maybe the general classification as well. And Mike is a one, you know, he's a danger one. If he gets back into the race and gets in good shape, he could be a danger one if he pulls back a lot of time, because he's 850 down. But you know, Herrada is a one. He's going to take a little bit of distance, but the next 3 days are so testing. It's going to be a big one for him to hold on to it.
Valle, you've been in a really attacking mood so far this Vuelta a Espana. How are the legs?
I don't know yet. Yesterday they were not too bad. Yeah, I needed a little bit rest after the day before in the breakaway the whole day. But yeah, maybe I recovered and ready to go again today, hopefully, and if not, the next 2 days in the mountains.
Because of the next 2 days that are coming, how do you think the GC guys will react in terms of letting the break go, people like you attacking strong riders?
Yeah, I think I'm not a really GC rider anymore this Vuelta, so I think that will not be the problem. But I think also maybe the GC riders will want to fight for the stage win today, tomorrow or Sunday, for sure. One of those days, I think there will be a team pulling in the peloton, but not sure if it will be today. So yeah, I think it's an opportunity that the break will go to the finish again. So then you just have to try and be there.
If you had to choose one profile from today, tomorrow and Sunday that's perfect for you to win the stage, which one would it be?
Well, I don't know. I would say today or tomorrow. Maybe Sunday looks super hard. The last climb, I've done it once in the past, and that's a really hard one. And also today, actually, it's so steep in the end. But yeah, we will just give it a try every day.
Good luck today. Thank you.
It's interesting, Sean, riders, when they take on a Grand Tour, they always say just take it day by day, and he's thinking about today and possibly tomorrow, and doesn't really want to think about Covadonga on stage 15, but that's a safe way of taking it, isn't it? Just measure yourself into a Grand Tour, and he'll be thinking about it. All focus will be in on today, and then let the rest of the race declare itself day by day.
Well, yeah, Borja Malema, I think he came to this race maybe with the idea of doing something in the general classification, but it hasn't been working out for him, and in the first week of racing he lost a bit of time. Then he got into that breakaway where we see Rudy Mollard moving into the race leadership, and he took back a lot of time again, but the following day he lost a number of minutes once again. And when you go on the breakaways like that, you are going to pay, you know, the following day, and if you do it a number of times, which Mollema has been doing, so now he's talking about stage victories, and you know, you just see how you're going. You can feel fine in the morning time, you wake up and you feel you're recovered, but when you actually go out on the road, sometimes after, you know, 20 kilometers of racing, it can start to, you know, really hurt a bit. And if you're feeling that way, if you're not up to it, well, then maybe you're not into being the breakaway of the day, first of all. But Mollema has made it now, and you know, he's the experienced rider as well. So he will give it a go, but will he have enough in the end? As we heard, he took a rest day yesterday. So those guys, when you're in good shape and you take an easy day, sit in the peloton, and people say to me, well, how can it be an easy day when you sit in the peloton? You have to cycle for 180 kilometres. But it actually is. If you can just stay in the peloton, don't go on any of the attacks in the earlier part of the race, and just follow in the middle of the peloton. It's amazing how much energy you can conserve, and also you can recover, and you'll be ready for the following day. And that's the position Mullen is in. Will he be good enough in this one today? Well, he's up in the breakaway. That's the first thing to do, to get into the breakaway of the day. Looking like at the moment the advantage. They could go all the way, but it's a bit early in the day yet, still with 81 kilometres to go, but he's in a real good position. And yeah, when you start looking for out of the big breakaway of 32, you have to put him in there as a potential stage run if it goes to the end.
I think so. I'm just wondering whether up front, the likes of Gorka Izagirre, that could be a great battle plan for Bahrain Merida, who are playing a very clever game at the moment. Will he drop back and help out Jon Izagirre if he's minded to attack out of the GC? Not to try and win the stage, but certainly to distance himself and take a few more vital seconds. Well, with such a busy series of days here, when do you go all in? Do you keep something back, or do you have a go? Welcome back. Just been pondering just how rich the vein of success is for Cofidis, with Nasser Bouhanni having taken a stage. He's departed the race now, not been very well. Wish him the best. Mate, of course, looking very strong in the King of the Mountains jersey competition. He had to work hard for it throughout some of the more benign days, but now in the high ground, I think he'd probably be gunning for this category 1 test that we're on right now. In fact, 10.3 kilometres remaining of it. That's where we are, and look how much high ground we have gained. In fact, we've been climbing for much of the day, save for 2 little descents. In fact, just almost as a constant. The altitude that we'll be getting to today will be quite heady. In fact, when we get to maxing out at the end of the day at 1,600 metres, but starting at sea level, that tells you how much we're climbing, and the climbing doesn't stop for the next 3 days. The climax, of course, is the Covadonga, and apparently that is the avowed target of Nero Quintana. They did have a rider in the Blake with Nelson Oliveira, but he's gone back. So declared 32 rider break is now actually down to 31, but nonetheless, so there are 6 teams without anyone up front. Mickelson Scott, who seeded the jersey yesterday, quite happily so apparently. It was getting to be a bit of a burden before these climbing days. Jack Haig, speaking this morning, said it was kind of the plan to lose the jersey, to be honest. We just didn't want it for Simon Yates. It makes life just a little bit easier, because today, he says, it's going to be very hard. And he's right. Thankfully, the temperature has started to warm up. It was 16 Celsius at the start. In fact, 19 at the start, declared at 16 at the end, at the finish line. In fact, it is a bit chilly, but it is starting to pick up. We're nudging the sort of 21. That's still chilly if you were setting your aircon, but nonetheless, these guys will welcome, I think, the moderation of the temperature, which was so high at the beginning of this race. We were in the 40s. Don't forget, a week ago. Well, we're approaching the 2 weeks in, are we not? Stage 14 tomorrow. Indeed, after Sunday's stage 15, we'll take a well-earned break. Then we are time trialing, and then yet more climbing, of course, before we get to the circuits around Madrid to decide our winner. And the fascinating thing is, Sean, we don't know who the winner's going to be, because it keeps chopping and changing, and there's so many favourites now getting back together, and they'll be added to that list by this break today.
Yes, well, it is been a funny race. There's no one who has been, in the late race leads the jersey of the general classification men who want to kind of hold on to it, and yeah, we see that right from the start. Kwiatkowski, he didn't really want it in the earlier day. Then Yates, of course, of more recent, and it's been offloaded to different riders, and it's amazing the way it changed today. Movistar were the ones who were riding yesterday after the breakaway, but today is the day where we have a number of teams riding, and that is always an interesting one, because they've decided now, when you look at the general classification, well, you know, they're going to have a fight there. Simon Yates is just ahead of Valverde, Quintana, Izagiri. They're all in there, and you can go down the list, you know, down to Uran, Kreiswick, Bennett. All of those guys are very much in it, and there's a lot of the teams just putting a man on the front here with Coughlin to control it, and I think they will be all happy with that. And certainly Michelin Scott did not want to have the jersey for the next number of days, because it puts a lot of pressure on the team, and we all remember the Giro as well. They rode so well, but you know, they just paid for it in the end of the race, and that's what they don't want to repeat of.
Indeed. Let's catch up with social media from the riders, shall we? Starting to like the mountain stages more than the flat easy stages, says Tosh van der Sande. Well, reaping some rewards, I think it's fair to say. Alexander Geniez tweeting about his success. Loved it yesterday. Didn't like bumping into one of the commissaires late on, who was busy running to avoid some photographers, and indeed ended up bringing everyone else down. Dusangon Mati says about the perfect Vuelta for his team. What a transformation. He said Covidis, the leaders and the mountains, and indeed a stage win as well. Doesn't get better. Here's Mitchelton Scott.
Good job, mate. 10 minutes from this group to the rider, guys. So that's perfect. That's no problem. That's the exact amount of time that we want between this group and Harada.
Well, he was masking his mouth from those who can lip read, but and we heard it anyway. I'm speechless. How can you allow a finish like today? Well, it was a dangerous one, let's put it that way, to say the very least. Very, very narrow, and in fact a bit of crowd encroachment as well. Really love Spain, said Mikhail Kwiatkowski, so I'm not going to comment on today's finish. Well, there's the punch of the air, because he's won it, and then get this, a hit in more ways than one. And that gentleman they ran into is part of the race management. Oh dear. It was brutal yesterday, Sean, for the wrong reasons.
Yes, well, it was. We could see there that you know, he just was running there, and reading in some of the reports there, he seemed to be going to talk to a policeman for some reason, and you know, somebody who was in the organisation. You know, it was a real big mistake there by him, because he was running away from the riders, and then he suddenly turned to the left and wanted to go across in front of them. If he had stayed close to the barriers, the riders, you know, they can handle their bike so well, they would have filtered through. But the moment he stepped to the left, well then Geniez had nowhere to go, and he just straight into him and the other riders over the top. It's an incident that should not happen, and yeah, it's a huge mistake, and anybody involved in the organisation you would expect, but you know, people make mistakes, but you know, you can't have them at the end of a race like that. But I think more so the running yesterday, it was a hectic final number of kilometres, and we did hear Burkhardt talking about it. You know, it was so dangerous in that final. He said something about they were going through, I think 3 kilometres out or 2 kilometres out, I can't remember how many, but he said they were on a wide road, a perfect place to have a finish. Then they went up a little bit of a hill and downhill, and we did see they're turning all the time. Like, if you had a big group of riders there yesterday, it could have been a real danger when you could have a huge crashes, and yeah, something that has to be looked at. And yeah, I've said it a number of times in these races of past, the UCI, they definitely need, you know, to have more control over the race organisers, because again, the race organisers want to make it spectacular. They're all trying to be better than the next one, and better than each other, and by doing that, you know, it doesn't sometimes think of the safety of the riders, and that's the utmost you have to think of these run-ins, and the speed they're going. Even though yesterday, you know, it was a very difficult day, when you go downhill there, they're doing 50 kilometres an hour plus so quickly, and you know, you could have somebody crashing out and going out of the race there yesterday, and that would be a big disaster, because you know, the teams invest so much and the riders invest so much time getting ready, training camps, altitude camps, all of that, and just one little mistake that way, you could lose a rider or a number of riders out of the race.
Movistar again have picked this up, Sean. They've decided that the pace and the gap is not to their liking. I can understand it. They've bitten back another couple of minutes. Now the reason is, if you actually look at who's in the breakaway, Benjamin King is 7 minutes and 4 down. Rafa Micah 8 minutes and 50 down. I'm just picking out a few names. Lawrence de Plus, 11.29. Boca Mollema, 14.50. Enau from Team Sky, 15 minutes down. Likewise, Gorka Izagir, Zachary, 19 minutes down. They sound like big gaps, but the gaps that are important are the ones to those who are going to be bidding for the title. And so you can basically knock 3 or 4 minutes off all of those deficits. And that's the threat to those who are bidding for the title.
Yes, well, I think, you know, that they know that there's other riders here in the breakaway again today in the general classification who have slipped down a long ways, notably Micah, Heno, Sergio Luis Heno from Team Sky. I think they're the two riders the most dangerous, maybe. King, maybe, the way he's riding as well, but there are a lot of teams control.
Welcome back, everybody. Movistar doing a sterling job, but I don't know. Are they going to get? Are they going to strike themselves out here? It's a difficult conundrum for them. We're just pondering the fact that the main players in this race are 3 minutes and 20, up to 4 minutes down. So Simon Yates, Valverde, Quintana, Jonas Aguirre, Tony Galopan, Manny Bookman, Miguel Angel Lopez from Astana, Uran from Education First, Kruiswijk, Bennett. If you take those riders and their deficit, then once you start looking at the gaps out front at the start of the day and the deficits that are declared to riders like Benjamin King, sure, he's 7 minutes and 4 down, but more crucially, he's only 3 minutes away from George Bennett. And that's why the GC men are starting to push on into the gap, and it's down to 6 minutes and 22. So they've lost 2 or 3 minutes in very short order. Now, there's a lot of teams that aren't happy with the way the breakaway is riding, and indeed the danger posted by the likes of Rafa Micah, Boca Mollema, Sergio Luis Henao, Gorka Izagiri as well up the road as a marker, we think, for Jonas Aguirre, but he could get himself a rack full of time as well. But notably, Rafa Micah, the Bora Hansgrohe rider, is 8 minutes and 50 down, but because he's in the break, he's only, 4 minutes or so down on some of the main players. And as a result, he's a danger, and that's why the pace has been picked up behind. Tosh van der Sande of Lotto Soudal looks like he's just about had enough today. They've got plenty up the road. Xander Armé, Thomas de Gent, Bjorg Lambrecht, Maxime Montfort. In fact, there's more up the road than aren't. Campanets is not one of them after his efforts yesterday. You can't be in the break all the time unless you're Thomas de Gent, it seems.
Not easy. Yesterday we did see it was a difficult day, and you know, they raced very aggressively in the end, and unless you're a rider, you know, can digest that well and recover very quickly, very difficult to do it, for a number of days, and do it on the second day in such a difficult stage as well. And yesterday was a difficult final, and today is going to be, you know, a more difficult once again. And there is some riders, in here that you know, were up the road in the past number of days, but yeah, it's better to take a rest. And when you look at the final as well, Carpenats, if he gets into the breakaway today, I think this final climb is going to be, you know, much too difficult for him. Unless he can arrive to the bottom of the climb on his own with 6 minutes ahead of everybody else, he's not going to get the stage victory. So yeah, I think that makes the decision immediately for riders like that. And you wait for a day, maybe where there's some mountains in the start. If you get into the break in the ALL part and get over the mountains, and then it's a flat finish, who knows what you can do for a breakaway. But on a day like today, you have to look at it and study it closely.
So this is the first major test of the day that we're on at the moment, and what have we got? 4.6 kilometres until we get to the top. They're certainly not going to take it in that short order. It'll be fascinating to see how the main players take the last 2.8 kilometres of today. But let's get this one over and done with for you, shall we? The toughest gradients come at about 77.5 k's to go, so they've been over that, and then it kicks again just before the crest, where in about the next 2 k's it gets more and more difficult. They're just round this little headland, slightly flat, and then it properly picks up a little bit later on. This is in fact, this is 5 minutes or so further down the line, so these guys are just approaching the foot of it. But 4.4 kilometres remaining for those out front, and they're starting to thin down. This is Bravo, and we say exactly that to him for giving it a go today, but it's not his cup of tea, quite clearly. likewise Tosh van der Sande, who's gone backwards out of the pack for Lotto Soudal. The pace is a high one because there is a great chance that this breakaway will take the day, but more than that, some of those who are involved could take a huge leap forward overall. Rafa Majka for Bora Hansgrohe. It's not all about Peter Sagan, and Majka's had some tough days, the pole. Well, he's 8 minutes and 50 down on the leader, but more significantly, he's only 4 minutes or so down on the main players who are really of the major concern. And in fact, Majka working hard. Jay McCarthy and Marcus Burkott will be there on his behalf as well as backup. Thomas de Gendt leading these at the moment. We're going to hear now from Rafa Majka, who spoke before we started today. It'd be fascinating to find out how he sets his stall out. Unfortunately, a lot of the quotes that come from the top of the day generally tend to be go-away quotes. Yeah, we're going to give it our best shot. It's going to be tough. Nothing's easy on this race, so we'll just have to see how it pans out. I don't know what he's going to say, but let's find out.
Rafa, you've won stages on days like today before, but here you're in a very different role, and everybody's very impressed with your work. What's your job today?
Yeah, we see for sure then we need to keep Emmanuel Buchmann in a good position for the climb and help him. But still we want to have some guys in the break today because maybe it's some change, you know, to win the stage. And it's really hard climb. And for sure these 3 days should be really hard for everybody, not only for our teammates, but for all the team.
To be honest, we got an awful lot more. Ashley got an awful lot more out of it than I thought we were going to get. Ashley House framing the question beautifully there. And Rafa Majka, he's got to be amongst the top favourites for today. And despite the fact he was trying to deflect the attention and put it on Manny Buchmann, Majka's the threat within this team. And it'll be fascinating to see how much he takes out of today. 8 minutes and 50 down, a rider like Majka can come good, Sean, and with 3 days of climbing, there's a lot of time to be had if you're on form.
Yes, well, he was talking a lot about Matty Buchmann, but I think he was thinking of his own chance as well in the stage victory. He wasn't telling us too much for exactly what the tactic was going to be, but yeah, he has a team there who can look after Buchmann back in the main peloton. And yeah, riders like Majka, if they get into the breakaway, first of all, for a stage victory, he's one who could do this sort of final. The other thing in the general classification, he could move up a lot. If the break is allowed to get away and get a big advantage, well then he could move back into the overall standings, and that would be a big move for the team Bora Hansgrohe. But the first thing is make the breakaway, then see how much of an advantage you have in the final. If you're good enough, go for the stage victory, and if you have a lot of minutes ahead, well then you're going to also it's a double whammy where you move up in the general classification also. And Majka is a one, if he gets back into the general classification, he's definitely getting better in the last number of days in this race, because I think he started out as well, suffered a bit maybe with the heat and not in the rhythm of racing as he would like to be.
Well, we're dancing to his tune potentially today. Well, they said the chance of rain would ebb and flow, and there's some heavy, rather pregnant-looking clouds in the locale. We've got Kwiatkowski. I'm just wondering how he's going to refire now that we get into these high mountains. It may well be the case. He's down in 17th place, 5 minutes and 32. He's not in the break, the Polish champion. There he is, wearing number 145. But he deserved a few days of respite before we get into the high mountains, and you never know, it could come back to him. Likewise, Mitchelton Scott quite barefaced about the fact that the burden of the red jersey was a bit too much for Simon Yates. Doesn't want to make the same mistake that they did in the Giro d'Italia, and so pressure off Mitchelton Scott. And I don't expect we'll see too much of them until we get to the end of today. With 3 days of high mountains, they needed a bit of freedom, Sean, and the red jersey was a burden.
Yes, it was. Well, it's always going to be a difficult one with the red jersey. You're going to have to control the front of the peloton, brakes getting away, and when you've got the race leadership in your team, well, then you are, it's pretty much the understanding to control the race, and that's always difficult. And for Mitchell and Scott, you know, they're happy to get out, and we did hear in the team car there yesterday, okay, the time gap to the breakaway is X. Well, that's good now, because we're going to offload the jersey, we're going to, you know, lose the jersey by so many minutes, and that is good for us. So you know, everything is under control, we heard out on the road, and that was probably, you know, quite a number of kilometres from the finish, possibly 50 kilometres from the finish, and yeah, you could you know, read, we could hear it clearly that they wanted to get rid of the jersey. And not surprising with the days we've got here, because it will really put the team under major pressure trying to control today, then tomorrow, then on Sunday. Really difficult days to do that. You just, you know, you kill off a lot of your riders having to do that, and it's a perfect scenario for any of the teams. But Movistar are the ones, they've been shown their cards a lot, and of course with Quintana, I think he's still the big favourite. They seem to be talking, everybody around the race here seems to be saying Quintana's going to be the danger man, but yeah, we've talked about Quintana before and he can let us down.
Bike change for Kwiatkowski. Went back to the car, had a brief chat, took everything off it, getting ready, put his parameter, his bottles, everything in his jersey, so that he's actually ready just to jump on the bike and then start redressing it, if you like, with all of his kit and caboodle. Out front, Astana started to pick it up. They didn't make the break either. Miguel Angel Lopez would probably have been a pick for this weekend, naturally enough, and they want to work hard for him. Lopez is 3 minutes and 49 down, but amongst the main players, he's 20 seconds off. And Movistar just deciding that they needed a bit of assistance up here, Sean, and the gap it went over 6 minutes, and it's been solid for a short while, actually.
Yes, well, we can see there was two Movistar men up there. Winner Ancona has just slipped back there. We see him moving over to the far side of the road. We can see here that you know, the rider from Astana is Stanilov, it looks like it there, but I didn't get a real look at him. But we can see there Amador is the one who was riding a lot for Movistar in this race. He has been as well in the last number of days. He's a solid rider, and he can ride in the front on this sort of terrain for kilometre after kilometre.
Yeah, Mano Eviti excuse me, was doing a proper job there as well for Movistar a little bit earlier. Looking back through this group, Micah looks very, very threatening. I'm actually wondering what we're going to get out of Bauke Mollema today. He's been busy redressing the gap that unfortunately was the cars that have been thrown to him early on, but he's a constant, it seems, in the breakaway, and a day like this, had he not been in there yesterday, I think may well have opened up for him. But we'll see how good his form is. New bike, new livery, and it's a Polish champion's bike by the looks of things here, red and white, matching his jersey livery as well. So he's gone for his lucky bike, Sean. He's quite quickly back in. Kwiatkowski's had such a busy season, and we expected him to, if at all, gradually work into this race. But his early success, in fact the jersey came to him on stage 3, then had to fight for that. Is he somebody else that could well reinvigorate themselves deeper into this race, bearing in mind what a hard season he's had?
Well, yeah, he is in a position now. He's down in 17th position. He's at 5 minutes and 32 down in the overall standing. It's a long ways down, because we know he's a good time trialist, but you know, if you take the 3 minutes 22 to Simon Yates, so that tells you what he's down in the overall standings. He needs to make up time before the time trial against the other big favourites, you know, the Quintanas, Izagirre, Bookman, Miguel Angel Lopez, Uran. The list goes on, and yeah, he has to try and do something in the stage, get away from those guys, and then in the time trial he can do, you know, that much better. So he's a better time trialist, but he slipped a bit too much down, you know, to really to do the challenging in the time trial. It's, you know, it's too far off. He has to do it in the mountains. And will he be good enough in the days to come? Maybe he's recovered, and can he do something in the next days? Today, tomorrow, Sunday, they are the days where we will see that. I think we will see today and the next 2 days the riders who are really going to be in there for a fight for the overall places.
Yeah, I think so, and that's what makes it fascinating, this approach today on a Friday. And indeed, traditionally, it's a day of finishing early and hitting the bars and watching, indeed, the finale, bridging to the weekend, making that bridge is a local expression. But let's wait and see. It certainly will be an extremely busy weekend as these guys just follow each other up the mountain. What an amazing break it's been, actually. And in fact, as I look deeper through it, you keep having to remind yourself of those of quality who are here. We haven't even spoken about Ilnur Zakarin. Had a crash early on, of course, and I'm hoping that he manages to pick himself back up. He's 19.5 minutes down, but a stage win would certainly help him. And yesterday we had an absence of Team Katusha Alpecin, but well and truly up towards the fore. And here we go, King of the Mountains points up for grabs. And can we... well, Thomas, again, we expected to invigorate. King is also involved. Mate just tucked in there with the polka dot jersey. And this is about just making screaming loud back down the mountain, I think. And again, actually takes it ahead of King, both of whom are involved in this competition. Mate likewise on 60 points. King getting runner-up there. It's a Category 1, Sean. So how do the points pan out for this one? There's a handsome amount there.
Yes, well, 10 for the first over the climb here, and it goes down to the 5th place, so 6, 4, 2 and 1.
So 10 added to making 26 for De Ghent, 6 for Ben King, putting him on 39, and 4 making 64 for Mate. So he's still comfortably in the lead of that competition. But clearly he's got a challenger with these two, De Ghent and King, and in fact they just carry their power on over the crest here. Now it's not a very long descent, Sean, because we've got to altitude and we're on another plateau, aren't we, which will carry us flat at first, but then gently descending to the foot of our final test today.
Yes, well, it goes down a little bit. The first number of kilometers goes down pretty fast, but then after that it just levels off pretty much, and it's just undulating stuff up and down on that plateau. And then we do go down a bit before we get to the final mount of the day, but it is real hard terrain here. We haven't got that long descent of that 15 to 20 kilometers at all here. You can see this section, it will be pretty rapidly over, and then they will start little uphills, downhills again. And we can see here again what a sprint he put in there with King in his wheel, and we could see Mate there. He just wasn't able to stay behind them. He was losing ground as they went towards the line. A real powerful sprint from Thomas De Ghent.
You know, in this part of the world, it very much looks like Norway or Scotland through the glens. Obviously, without the mosquitoes, the midges in the central Scotland at the moment. Actually, they've gone because they've had their first, I heard the other day, they'd had their first ground frost, so it's a perfect time to go and enjoy the Highlands. It's beautiful up there. So yeah, as soon as the flying teeth have actually ebbed because of the just one day of frost, that's all you need. And then all of a sudden you get these glorious days. Just ask Brian Smith. He'll be here. Both Brian and I in November, by the way, are going to be plying our trade up there, over towards Isla, incidentally. So if you see two, well, a big guy and a medium guy on the roads at the end of autumn, you'll know who it is. Let's check on that mountain classification then for you, and how it shapes up. See if my maths stands up to scrutiny. And here it is, 64 points for Mate, King on 40 now, De Ghent on 29. That's not how I worked it out, but anyway, one or other of us is. I thought it was 26 for De Ghent. Oh no, he took 3 points at the top of the day. We'll go with the graphic. Ignore my maths. My maths teacher did for quite some time. It was a difficult period. 6 minutes and 3 they've got, but all of a sudden they've struck out, Sean.
Yes, well, we can see the two in front and the group there of 32 riders, and actually we can see there Iman Elviti is there in that leading group. We were told that Oliveira was in there, but he went back, so there is a man from Movistar up in this 32 leading group.
Back in a moment. Carving through the countryside here. Will it be a carve up for the break? Just pondering who's going to be there at the pointy end today, because you've got to sustain a long series of tests. It's not as long as Luintra. That was a hellish day, wasn't it? 208 kilometres where the terrain looked quite benign, but in fact there were so many climbs, about 20 odd, of which only 4 were categorised, and it was a real hurter, that. You never know when the pain's going to come with this race, Sean. Talking about that Luintra stage, 208 kilometres 2 days ago, it burnt a lot of matches for some of these teams, didn't it?
Well, depending on how you race, of course, and we've had some really difficult stages where it's raced from the beginning, and you know, when it starts racing from kilometre 0 and the brake doesn't get away and it goes on for an hour, goes on maybe for 2 hours before the brake actually gets away, or close to that, then the brake gets away and it's a big one, and you know, they have to really push on fast because they have got away late in the day, so to build up a big advantage they really push out front, and they can push out front as well. You know, when you get a breakaway they can go for 100 kilometres, but of course if you get away at the beginning and there's 180 or 200 kilometres, well then you're going to be thinking, well, I better, you know, not ride too hard in the earlier part and try and keep something for the final 80, 100 kilometres. And when you get those days, and we've had a number of those days in this Vuelta, well then it's a real killer, and it's an energy sapping one, and yeah, there's a lot of riders that suffer because of that. And if you're in the breakaway on that day, you know, you're going to have to get a bit of time to recover, and it's only the fittest guys will recover quickly. Some guys needs 2 or 3 days to recover after a big day out in a breakaway when you really go deep. But if you're real fit and you're really in good shape, you can recover so quickly. And you know, we talked about some of the guys like Thomas de Gent, Benjamin King. He's been excellent as well. You know, he's recovering very well after his efforts, and he's worked it well. You know, he goes in the breakaway, successful, then wait for a bit, another one, and here we are again now today in this breakaway. So will it be the third time lucky for him? What a performance that would be if he could take his third stage victory, and all the ones he have taken are mountaintop finishes.
Yep. Remarkable. He took stage 4 and then stage 9. Stage 4 was to Alfagara. That was the first big climbing day, certainly a finish. We'd gone high in Al Harun on stage 3, but really it was when we had that day that King took it and left everyone in his wake. It was a quality break that made it all the way to the end of just 9 riders that day. A bit different today. Yeah, we've got 31 up the road. Bit of a change of personnel within it, and in fact, but the gap 6 minutes and 13 looks to be solid. It's been relentless. The pace, the temperature was as well. The temperature has changed, but certainly not the demeanour of the attitude of everybody out there. That stage I was talking about to Luintra looked like it might be a benign one, but it turned out to be brutal, and we've had day after day where it's been so hard. Even the run to Bermeo, that was the day where it was flat and we had a notch sort of test late on. That was hellish, and there are so many teams who've done a lot of work, and I'm wondering if some have done too much. Movistar haven't been afraid of doing a lot of work, and because of their experience you sort of think, well, that means they're in a position of strength. Movistar are nobody's fools, Sean. Strategy-wise, they play a good game, and because they're prepared to take on the burden of chasing, and all right, throwing out some criticism to other teams for not doing enough work in their minds, but it shows a lot of confidence and strength in Movistar.
Yes, it does show that they have the confidence in them, and you know, Movistar team, the personnel there, the director of sportives, they are very confident, and sometimes they're confident, but it doesn't work out in the end for them with Nairo Quintana. But it looks like that they are, you know, really interested in controlling this one for him. And yeah, we will see a little bit today. I think this sort of final, with the the run up to the finish, the final 3K, the real steep percentage, you know, touching that 20%. That's where Quintana can be very performant, and you know, he could try and do something here today. And the next number of days are really, you know, made for a rider like Quintana. Lagos de Covadonga, of course, another one which is a real difficult climb. So we will see there what Quintana has got here and how good he is. And I think for the team as well, they're hoping that he can get through those days and maybe take some valuable seconds on the other men challenging for the win.
The gap's down to under 6 minutes, and the pace that's been set by this super break has been just under 43 kilometres an hour, an average for the entire race. You saw on the descent here, we were nudging well into the 90 kilometres an hour. This is a power descent, wide open highway, and you can enjoy yourself if because there's a feeling that it's got some safety built into it, I guess. Of course, accidents can happen. Let's hope they don't. Let's speak to Aviti, shall we, about the day?
Manuel, pues ¿cómo ves el día de hoy, una etapa muy impresionante?
How do you see today's stage passing away, passing by? It's an important one. Yeah. Finally, we have a ride in Asturias, and there are 3 summit finishes, and nobody can hide. So yeah, we'll just have to see what we can do today.
Debe ser al frente de la carrera.
So Movistar has to be in the front of the race. We're going to try and race in a clever way. Fighting for victory is our main goal.
¿Conoces bien la subida final?
Do you know anything about the last climb? Yeah, I do. Once we got in a breakaway here, and it was absolutely terrifying. 2 kilometers from the finish, it is a total wall, he says. Well, will he have the strength to get over it? He's in the break, Imanol Aviti, for Movistar. Hasn't stopped. He's given them an excuse, I think, now that he's installed within it, that they don't have to push, but they're making sure that the gap is not a huge one. Aviti will potentially have his chance, whether he'll act as a foil, a little bit of leverage, or indeed a bridging point for the likes of Quintana if they do strike out there and he drops back. Who knows? Gorka Izagirre could offer that up to his brother Jon Izagirre in Chousty. We were talking about Kwiatkowski kind of holding in a holding pattern until we get to the time trial. Actually, he needs to find time even ahead of the time trial, which he's very good at. Very good time trialist that we've spoken about a couple of days ago, Sean. Jon Izagirre in Chousty. He's got his brother Gorka up the road. He's also a spectacular time trialist, but there's some big question marks about his durability in the high mountains. And I guess that question will be answered over the next 3 days.
Yes, well, I think he's in the position now where he has to try and hold his place and, if anything, move up in the general classification, because he's the man in the team who they're depending on. He's down there in that position, 5th, 3:39 down. He's in a real strong position. It will be interesting to see how we will support this. Something that's, new for him, leader of the team as such, and this could be the good thing for him, that he has to do it now, and who knows what he can do.
He'll never get another chance, not like this one anyway. Yeah, just speculating as to the chances of Jon Izagirre in Chousty, whose brother Gorka is up the road. He has a super domestique who seems to be coming back to form. Vincenzo Nibali, he's way down the order, Sean. He's thinking of building himself up for the World Championships, and having a right-hand man of that level of credentials is a gift, surely.
Yes, well, we see Nibali in the breakaway yesterday, and he looked quite good, and to the very end he was up there, and he was the one who was going in the attacks and putting in attacks in the final, but he got left in the second half of the big breakaway, and then he just rode in from there. We could see in the final number of kilometres he just rode in at an easier pace, but he's coming in good condition, and he's going to be one we're going to see more of in the days to come in the difficult stages. And for Jon Izagirre, if he needs help, well, no better man than Nibali, because he's going to be very much there in the crucial moments of the most difficult stages in the final of this one.
Quintana's up towards the front here. You can see he's being minded at the moment by the green jersey on the back of Alejandro Valverde. Valverde, despite the fact that he sits second only to Simon Yates, and this is where the important bits are. No disrespect to Jesus Herrado, who leads this race, but by an odd margin of 3 minutes and 22, courtesy of the gap yesterday. It's really from second place down to 11th, so the virtual top 10. Let's put it that way, that has our concern, because that's Simon Yates, Valverde, Quintana, Jon Izagirre, Tony Gallopin, Manny Buchmann, Miguel Angel Lopez, Rigoberto Urán, Kruijswijk and George Bennett. Of all of those, the man who's stayed quietest of all, hiding in full view, is Rigoberto Urán, who I think is a real challenger for the title. Let's wait and see, shall we? That's how your mountains class stacks up. breakaway, still playing with the day. Thanks, by the way, for joining us throughout. It's Steve Lee. Nice to see some sunshine in his stories. He says, had a very wet holiday there a few years ago. Steve, I've been there myself, and you're absolutely right. It does have its challenging weather days. Went once, had a fabulous holiday. Went again, it was dreadful, and thought, oh, that must be a bad year. Went a third time, it was dreadful again. So yeah, luckily this year the temperature throughout Northern Europe has been very, very pleasant as a result. It seems to have extended and made for some very good holidaying. Despite my tease about Cornwall yesterday, I had a spectacular holiday there this year after the Tour de France. Very rejuvenating, fantastic. Polzeth, if you want to know. Gorgeous surfing. Treballestrando, that's the place. Certainly the place for me. There is Valverde tucked in. He had a mechanical while we were on a break, and in fact dragged himself along his own team car using his left hand. Held onto a bottle while his mechanic produced the clé d'Allen, as they say in France, the Allen key to fix his saddle height by way of an insurance mechanical moment. We'll wait and see if the UCI issue a fine, Sean. They've been dishing out plenty, haven't they? They're clearly saving up for their Christmas party.
Do you mean the clay is from Alan, the mechanic? Is Alan his name?
I think so. They call it a hexagon and Allen key in this part.
They have been dishing out fines, but of recent, yesterday there were not too many of them there. So the commissaires, give an easy day. But I don't think it's finished yet in the difficult days to come. In the mountain stages, there'll be a lot of sticky bottles coming out for the riders who are further back the road, and in the gruppetto as well. When you have the team cars there, they'll be going back to the car for bottles quite a number of times. When you're in the bus, which means when you get a group of 30-40 riders, they form a group, then they ride together. And they ride the climbs at a steadier pace, and then they make the descents, and if there's a valley, maybe 20 or 30 kilometers, they ride very hard there, almost fast as the leading group, and just limit their losses to get inside the time limit at the end of the day. Those guys, they do get a lot of bottles, and that's where we see a lot of the fines coming from. Indeed.
Have you ever heard of a sticky broom handle?
Never.
Don't look all innocent with me. Yeah, there was word that it has actually reared its head on occasion, giving an assist, but hey, you'll have to buy the book. 5 minutes and 56 with 48 kilometers to go. Don't worry, it's not like usual. As they start to take on yet more of this rolling terrain, there's quite a bit more to come. Looming large today is always going to be this final climb. How much of a gap do you think there will be from those who are threatening the GC men to the GC men themselves who are chasing and doing a proper job of it now? This gap's coming down at, what, 6 minutes? What can we expect with the last 10K, Sean? We'll be there in 37 kilometres time. A couple of minutes?
Well, it'll all depend on what happened here in the main peloton, and out front as well, how much they ride together. With a big group, we can see here they're still pushing on. They have been pushing on now more in the past 15-20 kilometers. Certainly the 15 kilometers, we can see there's a bit more urgency, and they have to, because they know the gap is coming down, and we can see now just under 6 minutes. It was way over that earlier on in the stage, so they have to push on a bit earlier, but we've got the manpower to do that. But there's going to be a lot of guys here maybe not prepared to do much when you have a big breakaway like that, and that's when it starts to break down, and then we will see those attacks. But on this sort of terrain, you don't have a long climb to get rid of guys. It's undulating stuff up and down, but you don't have anything until the final climb of the day. So yeah, it's going to be a complicated one for the breakaway. And they need to have maybe 2.5 minutes for some of the guys that are in this breakaway, like a Zachary who can climb well. We're picking out some of them, the men. Dylan Towns is also a good one there. Micah is very good. Benjamin King, who showed out of breakaways, he's really strong and in really good shape. Lawrence Laplus as well, another rider who on day 2, the first road stage, he almost stole a march in the final. We see him attacking in the final kilometre and held off onto the final 200 metres. So yeah, there's a good number of guys here who can do this final climb quite strongly. So if they get there with 3 minutes, there could be some manage to hold on.
We're speaking to Miguel Angel Lopez in a short while. The MLS Rijano. Apparently this is a bird reserve, but can't see any just for now. But they're probably a bit tuckered out after a big flap this morning. Craig Middleton says, if the Izagirre brothers fall away in the next 3 stages, is it out of the realms of possibility that Lopez could actually look after them, seeing as he's signed for Astana in 2019? Surely not.
Tiene 3 días, muy duras. ¿Qué son los objetivos?
Here he is, 3 tough upcoming stages. Tell us your goals for the next 3 days. We need to stay concentrated. We don't want to let anybody down. Today's important, also tomorrow and Sunday, so we need to be very focused. Just stay focused. So what will happen today? I don't know, but I'm hoping something good in the finish. There you go. Good guy. The red numbers, by the way, are for the leading young rider. The white jersey here is the combined jersey, and both Sean and I think that's just a wasted opportunity. It does give the sponsors of that jersey a big name who plops it on. They can put it in the posters in there. I don't know whatever they do. The fish frying equipment distributor, could be anything, but yeah, I really think there should be a young rider's jersey, not just a red number, which translates as a combativity number in the Tour de France, but here not. The combativity number is green backed white number. So yeah, if you see that red number, it's the leader of the young riders competition, and that is Miguel Angel Lopez. Just go back to Craig Middleton's comment. Do you ever get any cross team help when somebody has signed for a team? Is he more given to being sympathetic to the riders from the team, which is his ultimate destination at this time of the year? If you got found out, you'd be in trouble, John.
Well, I don't think for Lopez there's anything he can do there, because if in Merida, if they haven't got somebody up there in the general classification, well then there's nothing he can do, and I don't think it's the thought that comes into the riders' minds anyway. You have to just look after what you're doing yourself, your own team, and do your best race possible. Of course, when you're in the end of a stage and you're with somebody, maybe as your training, buddy, partner, back in your home country, and you're in the very final, he goes in the attack, you don't chase him down maybe with other riders in the wheel. Little things like that, I suppose, you would give a favour to a very good friend or a training buddy. So those little things, but other than that, like, they would be there'd be minor things at the end of the day.
Well, unless you're Chris Froome, of course, and Richie Porte, who is a really good friend of his. There was a few incidents where no favours were being shown at all. Froome was tanning his backside on a number of occasions. In fact, garnering support to attack Richie on occasion, showing that there is certainly no favours for some riders out there once you start in combat.
Yes, and I think you're talking about Dauphiné, and Richie Porte mentioned that is something. He talked to Chris Froome about it, and he's still good friends with Chris, and but he said he'll not forget it. And when the rider says that, well then, there could be someday that Richie will return the favour, and it's a one that in bike racing, it's nothing new. I remember back in my time as well, like, you have some guys you'd know pretty well, but in a race that does happen, that they walk you over a bit with some other teams and some other riders, and yeah, it's something that you put in the back of your mind there. And if you have the opportunity to return the lift, as they say, you will certainly do it.
There we are. Never cross a Kelly, that's what I say. On this lovely viaduct over these reservoir, as you can see, as we continue inexorably to the big test today. Can't wait. Camperona beckons. Well, they're playing with us here. The gap is holding at around 5 minutes and 40. And in fact, we're on this long stretch where this huge body of water we're just sailing by, which Juan Antonio is going to be talking to us about very soon. This is Marcus Berger. he, Jay McCarthy, and indeed Rafa Majka is proper fighting force for Bora Hansgrohe. And I think that Rafa Majka has got a design on taking today's stage. And not only that, just getting himself back into contention, 8 minutes and 50 down. And a handicap of 5 minutes and 39 out there. Add, say, 8 minutes and 50 down on Herrada, but he's only, what, 5 minutes down on, and indeed 3.5 minutes down on the main body of the main challengers. So it's up for Majka to do something today, and I think he will. Zakharin's got some great freedom because he's much further down in order. And a quality rider, despite having a crash in the early part of this race. I think he's going to have a dig. We're going to be hearing from Juan Antonio about this beautiful part of the world in a short while. But as it stands, Sean, it looks like this breakaway is going to have its fun today. I know it's still a long way out. But who's your pick for today out of this break?
Oh, it's a difficult one to pick a winner out of this group, and we can see here, there's the urgency on in this big break. We've lost a number of riders there. I think maybe 3 or 4 riders. We see quite early. We see Bravo there from Miscatel Back's country going out the rear door. We also see Tosh van der Sand from Lotus Soudal, and we certainly have lost a few riders, but we have all the names that are going to be really the guys challenging for the stage win here. And we're on this section now. It's fast. There's downhill sections, then it goes up a little bit, falls flat sections, and they have to push on because 5:42, and they have been pushing on for quite a while. They know that the peloton is closing down, or was closing down maybe a number of kilometres back, so they have to push on here, and it's going to be difficult to get rid of the riders out of this group. If you have a climb maybe of 3 or 4 kilometres, you could get rid of a lot of the guys who are sitting in the rear because they're tired and they're not really able to add anything to the breakaway. But the terrain doesn't present that now. It looks like that this break is going to go to the bottom of the climb with a very big group of riders.
For me, the man who's going to make the big inroads today is Miguel Angel Lopez. Astana have done a good job of just doing enough work to be there. You see Omar Freire just to the front of the men in the solid palish blue, as opposed to the one with the big white M on it for Movistar. I don't think this is Quintana's day, but it's a question of just maintaining themselves, I think, keeping their powder dry for what's going to be an extraordinarily busy weekend. Quintana's going to be thinking about Covadonga, I'm sure, on Sunday, this special climb. If you win that and then you end up winning the race, you've taken the one of the blue ribbon climbs, possibly, notwithstanding the final day run to Galina. But Covadonga would be a huge stage win for him, and I think that's going to be a target. So if it's not that today, and it's a question of just marking everybody out, which is what Movistar are doing, they're happy to put their hands to the pumps as well, just to make sure that this break doesn't get too silly. I think Miguel Angel Lopez says he's one of those guys who's hiding in full view. And don't be surprised as well if Education First, have we seen anything of the men with the pink shoulders today? No, because they're keeping their powder dry as well within the pack. And in fact, the break is so big, we're sort of dwelling on that. There is Cofidis working for the red jersey. Of course, it's Jesus Herrada, and unfortunately for him, it's very, very similar to his trade team kit. If you're going to lead a race, then make sure it's slightly different colour. But nonetheless, you just saw him there having a look at his wrist. I don't know whether he got himself a little insect bite, looking very twitchy and nervous. Let's change the mood then. Here's Juan Antonio.
The Vuelta a España passes through today the Riaño Reservoir, one of the biggest in Europe. But the reason why we're here is for another story, and that was the tragedy and drama that happened when the dam was finally closed. Riaño used to be a valley with up to 9 villages located in this beautiful area. The locals had to live up to 22 years with the agony and uncertainty of knowing of whether or not the dam was going to finally be closed. When that happened in 1987, the tragedy And the drama arrived to this area, as all the locals, they had to live as well the rest of their life with a strong and rooting feeling. The truth is that the dam brought a lot of prosperity to this region, and at the same time, a lot of pain to them.
Well, there you are. A poignant story. In my locale as well, we had the ancient village of Derwent. And once they flooded the Lady Baron Derwent reservoirs, very close to where I was raised, yeah, the village was there, and on very, very dry summers, of which we've had one now, the waters would recede, and you could see the village, and it upset a lot of people. Especially when the church tower was revealed and the bell would ring at almost mournfully so for those who were, I guess, still down there. You see what I mean? So they rather than leave it as a local tourist spot, they brought in the Marines and they blew it up. That's poetry for you. It would have been a local landmark forever. Go and hear the bell toll at low water, but no, they decided it was just far too upsetting for those who'd moved out, and so they just decided to dynamite it. Anyway, moving on. It's clearly the same thing has happened here with 11 villages submerged. No trace of any of them by the looks of things, but that's probably because the water's higher here. 35.3 kilometres then from home, and although we've come along the edge of this reservoir, it actually now does the road. We've sort of climbed moderately, hasn't really affected the pace too much, but we're going to get to a descent, so the pace may well pick up. The gap's been pared back to 5.5 minutes. Team Sky's Colombian up here and looking moderately threatening. Sergio Luis Henao. Oh, there you go. A couple of bottles taken, and all of a sudden that. It's not what you want. It's from the break. And is it De Plus that's on the deck as well? My goodness, hardly a wise moment. They're trying to hand over water. They've had a big old bump, but they've got themselves back up here. And Sean, that's the danger, isn't it, when you're pushing on so hard? Lawrence De Plus, indeed, just getting a little bit of assist here. They'll check his back brakes, but rather handily to give him a chance to sort of get over the shock as well. And whistle's going off here to unhand the bike, and they adhere to that. It shows you, Sean, you can get caught out at any moment. Let's have a look if we can see it. There's dabs on the brake and just a little lack of focus momentarily, and there's the result, Sean.
Yes, and we could see there it was the rider from Bora Hansgrohe who seemed to go down first. Looked like Jay McCarthy there, and we could see Lawrence De Plus just going over him and also coming down. And it's so easy when you're grabbing these bottles or grabbing the musette, you can get it tangled and down you go. And we can see Benjamin King there also. He was also looking like he was in that zone when it did go down. And the rate they're going along here, if something happened like that, if you're really close to the rider, well then there's nothing you can do.
A nerve settler, often that can wake you up, an incident such as that, though. Bit of a shock to the system for those who took a tumble, Sean, but a reminder that you can get found out at any time. And quite often when the adrenaline kicks in, you can have a stellar moment after something like that. We'll see.
Yes, well, we can see everybody is getting looked after there by the team cars, and up front we can see it's Burkhardt from Marcus Burkhardt from Bora Hansgrohe is still pushing on here on this little descent, just tucked down there and keep the pace real high. But the guys we did see there, they're getting a little bit of the mechanical help there. The spanner is out, so they'll just get a little bit of recovery time and get back onto the rear of this group. And we can see there De Plus there behind the quick step car. He's just a little bit off the rear of the peloton. We can see the rider here from Dimension Data, Benjamin King, also coming back, so they're all in the cavalcade at the moment.
Just making sure that everything's how it should be with the bike, just jumping himself back into his saddle. this is where the road tips down a little bit and you've got the pace. Remember what I was saying, we sort of climb up very gently to the side of the mountain, and then you've got almost a welcome relief of largely downhill that will take us almost all the way to the 10 kilometres to go marker. There are some rises and falls, but largely speaking, there should be some real pace about today. And pace is not something that we've been short of today. In fact, we've been very much above what was the predicted fastest pace of 39 kilometres per hour. We've been nudging 43, Sean, in the sort of terrain, and considering the climb that we've already had, notwithstanding the one that's still to come, they haven't been hanging around.
No, they haven't been hanging around, and the breakaway has been, you know, way quite early in the day, and a big breakaway, and they've worked well together, and well, the peloton has to work equally hard because to control the breakaway, although they did allow to go out to quite a big advantage over the 8 minutes they allowed to go to, and it's been coming back ever since. And you know, that was around 80 kilometres to go when we had 8 minutes, and it's coming down all the time, but still they're holding on here. 5:23 at this point. It should be enough for some of the men out of the breakaway to go on and be able to hold it on the final mountain and take a stage.
We'll be hearing from Jesus Herrada, who spoke at the top of the day. He almost seems to... there's some kind of issue, a family issue back home. It could be anything, of course. We are all, after all, mere mortals. But he seems very sort of downbeat, I must say, does Jesus. I'm just hoping it doesn't overly cloud him. Clearly something going back on back home, which he's referred to obliquely, but hasn't given any detail, and we're not given to asking those questions. If somebody wants to tell us, then that's fine. But nonetheless, there is a pall of sadness about him at the moment, despite the fact he's in the leader's jersey. I hope he picks up at the end of today, mood-wise. Let's wait and see. He needs to be enjoying these days. It's a stellar time for him, indeed for Cofidis, who of course lead the King of the Mountains competition with Luis Angel Mate. They have the overall lead with Jesus Herrada. And indeed a stage win for Nasser Bouhanni. It doesn't get much better than that. So yeah, let's see what his demeanour is in a few moments, as we spoke to him at the top of the day. Later we'll be hearing from Alberto Contador, incidentally, who is part of our Spanish team at Eurosport now, which is an absolute pleasure to have him around. Yeah, he's talking about the final climb today, and indeed that really the next 3 days are where we're going to find out who's got a chance to battle, indeed, for the title here. That's right. Here's Jesus.
¿Qué tal, Jesús, con esta camiseta roja?
Hi, Jesus. How are you doing with the red jersey on his shoulder? Well, he looks happier. Yeah, for Cofidis, red is a great colour. We need to enjoy this as long as we possibly can. Is it a dream to be wearing this red jersey here in Spain? Yeah, it's a dream, and especially because this is my first Vuelta de España, so I've never ridden it before, but and to have this jersey is something so important, and so I'm going to try and enjoy it. You will enjoy it, I'm sure, but it's going to be a difficult stage to keep hold of this jersey. Yeah, we'll enjoy the suffering, he said. We're prepared to do it because it's a difficult finish. We're going to give it our all, and we'll try and keep hold of this jersey for as long as possible. There we are. He's a serious man, isn't he, Jesus Herrada? He mentioned family issues at home, but we'll look by that and look forward to seeing Cofidis riding hard. He doesn't have that much backup in the mountains, so his ambition, Sean, is to hold it for as many days as possible, and for that I guess we have to be grateful. They've done some work today, although they've had help.
Yes, they have help, and they need the help because this breakaway, you know, is the big one, and with Cofidis and Herrado, I think the other riders, you know, feel that he's not going to be able to hold on to it. So we can see there that there's other teams who want to control, notably Movistar, but also Astana. They are very active today. We could see there they hit a man all the time up there in the front of the peloton and contributing to the pace setting. So they are going to get help, and that's what they've got to they've got to do that with cover this. They have to work it well tactically, and well, he is Harada, that's what he's got to do. Play the tactic off of the other rider. When he gets into the final, when he'll not have any other teammates with him, then just, you know, use the other riders to follow each other. And you know, you don't have to start following the first rider that goes in the attack. You leave some riders go. The guys who maybe are ahead of them or just around them in their classification, they will also chase. So use that tactic, and if he can do that, who knows how many days he can hold on for.
41.7 kilometres per hour for the entire stage so far. That is quick, considering what we've dealt with. Looking back a few moments ago, it was interesting. Bauke Mollema just went up and said to Mate, "So, how's things in the mountains jersey?" Not realising he'd ask a question of a whinger. And then Mate said, "Every day I have to fight to make the break, decide if I'm going to be in it or not, and then I've got to sprint all day." Bauke Mollema went, "Righty-ho," and just rode off. He wanted a bit of conversation, John, and all he got was whinging.
Yes, it looked like that. I could not really get exactly what the discussion was about, but it looked like you make it into the breakaway after, you know, a difficult time, and then at the GPM points you have to sprint. But yeah, the mountain classification is still very much open, and it's not a case where, you know, somebody has wrapped it up already, and that we have seen in big tours. When you get to a point and the guy has a huge advantage, well, then they don't really contest with him. But Mate, like, he has a nice advantage, but there's so much more to come. And you know, Benjamin King and Mollema, Thomas de Gent, they're all thinking now for the days to come that there's so much points available on these big mountain stages that the mountain classification jersey is still very much open, and they're going to, you know, sprint for it. And you know, Mate doesn't seem to be too happy with that. It looks like he's looking for easy points today.
Little chapel with 2 doors, Sean. What's that about? Is that for the good and the bad?
There are not 2 doors in all chapels?
Saints and sinners, in and out. I can't imagine there'd be that much of a crowd. They could probably get away with 1 door, but
well, normally in the chapel I think there's more than 1 door.
There is. It's for the it's for those paying penance and those that are blessed. Which side would you go through, Sean?
Main door. Main entrance.
Straight down the middle. There we are. Plays a straight bat to Sean. It's hard to get anything past him at the moment. 23 kilometres from home, and indeed it's time to stock up and stack up. They're going to run up run beyond the place where they can take sustenance, and we'll be there very, very quickly to our final test of the day. In fact, those out front, 4 minutes ahead of this group right now, 4 minutes and 40, so they've found, well, they've knocked 4 minutes off them. If they can get back within the 3-minute zone, I think they'll be reasonably happy, but they're fearful of those within the break that could take some inroads, and that's why Movistar are doing a job. They believe that Quintana is going to win this race, and they're backed up by the bookmakers, I can tell you. Yes, I appreciate that the Yates principal in this race, Simon Yates, you're looking at his brother Adam just off your camera at the moment, bottom left, is equally as favoured as we head towards the mountain. But the way that Movistar are riding at the moment, they're rack full of confidence. 42.1 kilometres now. This is because this is the average for the entire race so far, not just the last hour. So they picked up with this long, remember I said it was a gentle downhill approach that will take us to the 8 kilometres to go marker. So we may well, by the time we get to the climb, have an average pace of the day around 43 kilometres an hour, which is hellishly fast. That will be a full 4 kilometres per hour as an average than the fastest predicted time. So we're going to be on an early finish, although the pace will get absolutely tectonic by the time we reach the last 2.8 kilometres of hell. And they will be, Sean. We're talking 20%.
Yes, we are. The final 3Ks of the real killer of this climb, and in the earlier part, you know, it just kicks up 3%, then it drops down to 2%. But in the middle, it does kick up to, you know, over 7% for a number of kilometres as well. So it is it's a climb where the riders will be trying to hold off. Everybody will know the final 3 kilometres. The breakaway guys, you know, are thinking, well, if I go early here, I could pay on the real steep section inside the final 3 kilometres, as it will be back in the peloton of big favourites as well. But you know, coming down to 4.5 minutes and still with 21.5 to go, they know in the breakaway they have to really, keep the pace going very fast up front. Otherwise, this gap could come down so much that they might be able to hold on, that anybody might be able to hold on. And yeah, it's getting complicated now for the men in the breakaway, and for the men who are the real contenders, which we talked about, like in the Zakarin and Dylan Toons, Thomas de Gent, Lawrence de Plus, Sergio Henio from Team Sky, the better climbers, and there's probably other ones in there as well. Volko Malema, you cannot ever count him out of it. There's a lot of riders thinking this could be an opportunity lost if we do not really ride strong here, and you can see any of the teams that has got a number of riders, they are the ones that are committing big time. That put the men that they need to use, they're going to use them here in this final 20 kilometres and get their main man into the climb in the strongest position possible.
So let's hear from Juan Antonio Fletcher as to what they're going to be dealing with. We're dialing the clock back to 2016, so 2 years ago. Was this when Fletcher had a moustache? Don't think so. But nonetheless, pace is picking up. We've got an intermediate sprint to deal with, but nonetheless, here's Fletcher.
We are at Sotillos, which is about 3 kilometers to go to the top of La Camperona. The climb, it already has started about 4 kilometers farther south. It's around this area here where the riders will have a bit of a rest before they enter, which is meant to be a brutal climb. It has some ridiculous steep sections, and particularly this 1 kilometer, where it's meant to be the steepest one in the history of professional cycling. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm here to experience it. It's less than 3 kilometers to go, but at this percentage will be still a long way for the riders to go on the attack. The legs are really hard in here. It's about 2 km to go. Very steep already. Quite a steep climb, but still explosive. And the riders will get here from a flat, long stage, so don't expect big differences, big gaps. Oh yeah, that's gonna be a hot one. Oh God, it's 25%, roughly. And it's a long straight. Who's gonna attack here? Big question. We haven't got to the last kilometer of the climb yet, but this one here is the famous one. It gets very steep for a very long time. That's why we may see some riders zigzagging all the way up to the climb, because that's the only technique left for them to make it to the finish line. I wonder what they built. Well, actually, how and why did they pave this goatee road? It was about the 8th century when the Muslims invaded the Iberian Peninsula, everything except the north here. That was where the Christians started La Reconquista. And each one of these flags represents its village claimed back to the Muslims. Will the Vuelta be conquered here at La Camperona? We don't know. I do believe it's still too early. But what is true, a rider can really start building up onto this Grand Tour victory here at this steep climb. It is be very hard, and that last bit here, a few hundred meters to go, it'd be brutal.
Fletcher, still in the pink, metaphorically. But back then, 2 years ago, we did the recon. Nothing much has changed, apart from Rita, Queen of the Mountain, who, of course, applauded him on his way there, gave him great encouragement. We like that. We might see her again today. 17.3 kilometres from home for 4 minutes. Then is the gap. They're starting to close it down. Here's a man who was in the break, and he looks like the incredible bulk. He's a man who is going to be handing out water bottles there. Yeah, just making sure that they're all comfortable. And indeed, Imanol Aviti has got a job to do right now, and it's about offering up sustenance to those who are pushing on. And Movistar really have got the bit between their teeth, and they've got friends with Astana as well, who are looking for Miguel Angel Lopez to tee him up. This is the first of 3 knockout rounds, potentially, of climbing days, and they know that they have to do some work here. Cofidis as well, just tucked in, getting a free ride for the red jersey for now. We'll take a break before we start to climb. Welcome back. Thomas again has just been racking up the pace, just making sure that there's a lot of hurt going on before we get to the final tests. This is a man who skipped up the Stelvio, don't forget, in his time. Can he possibly dial it back to that? Did it on Von 2 as well. He's a man who can take an awful lot of suffering, but the pace he's putting in is making everyone suffer. It's being matched just for now by Movistar. Drifting back, Imanol Aviti. Looked like it was carrying a waterbed for everyone to take sustenance from. They have indeed put the bottles in the cages, and now it's time to unleash the tigers. Let's see, shall we, who it is going to be. Marcus Berger digging deep. Jay McCarthy and Mafa Maika have got the excuse not to push on out of that pack. They're arguing over whose work rate. The man is prepared to put his shoulder to the grindstone, of course, is Thomas de Gendt. They've got to be careful he doesn't just ride away from them. Tempo off up this incline. We'll wait and see. 12.7 kilometres from home. The last 2.7, just about 2.8 in fact, are the zone of hurt. Everything before that is, if you like, an entree to what will be a hellish meal for some of these guys. Who's going to be able to swallow it? We'll wait and see. Alberto Contador then has his views on this test and knows that the next 3 days are where we are going to find our the spotlight placed upon the GC men. And in fact, they sit now just 4 minutes and 9 down. I imagine we may well get, there's a possibility we may well get a principal name, one of the big favourites, taking a big leap forward. What does Bertie think?
Y llegamos a la camperona. Palabras mayores, porcentajes ya.
We arrive at the Puerto play a major role in the middle of the stage, but we arrive at Camperona. 20%, 19.5 as an average over that last, but a climb that looks endless. You see the road signs, 2 kilometres to go, and then the road sign of 1 kilometre to go, and you still don't arrive. It seems that the 500 metres are the hardest ones. Today's stage will be crucial in deciding the correct gear to use. If you're too short, it could be too tough. We'll see. 34 chain sets up the front, 30-32 chain sets at the back. Otherwise, the last part of the climb will become endless, even impossible. Gearing, Sean, it's going to be vital if you're meant to make a move forward, but the pace we've got here, don't think we're going to see any bike chains in advance. What are they carrying to deal with this last test?
Well, we did hear Contador talking about the gear ratio. It needs to be a very low one, and it's not surprising when you talk about this final 3 kilometres over. We did see there when Fletcher was climbing maximum 24%, so that gives you an idea how difficult it is in the final 3 kilometres to the line here. And they're going to be turning, I think, a 34, 32 chain ring, something around that, and that is an amazing low gear for those guys, because when you see the guys going up the climbs, they can go up on the rear sprockets 3 or 4 sprockets higher than the normal sportive club rider would be doing. Even at the end of a very difficult stage, 2 weeks into a race, they can still do that. And when you talk about that 34, which is the inside chainring on the front, 32 sprocket on the rear, it's an amazing low gear, but they will need it, as Contador has said.
There we are. Well, let's see. Some will have got it right, some very right. Of course, class is something that is eternal, and I guess top of the class today, who's it going to be? Zakharin, Maika, Enau from the breakaway. And what about those battling further back? I think Quintana might have a dig today. Just wait and see. Miguel Angel Lopez from Astana. So yeah, it could be about the men in blue. Seeing another grain store here. I've found out about these now. They're held off the ground to keep rats away. The clinker wood has got gaps in it so that the grain dries. Presumably it doesn't spill out, but nonetheless. So that's what that's all about.
The Spanish rats must not be great climbers, because
No.
I think a rat would be capable of climbing that.
Do you know what? That's what I thought the other day as well, but that's what I'm assured of. But anyway.
They must be good climbers down here.
Very short legs, maybe the short-legged mountain rat of Spain. Always looking for ladders. 9.2 kilometres from the finish and 4 minutes. They're doing a great job here, Movistar. I hope they're not burning themselves out. Quintana, fresh as a daisy, just tucked in. Valverde's going to have a proper dig. They haven't got a man in the break anymore. They had Nelson Oliveira early on. He dropped back. Imanol Viti carried a load of bottles back, so that at least they're well hydrated. At the moment, it may well be that they have some fun. It's really tumbling, this gap. Don't forget that Jesus Harada is with Movistar back there. But it's starting to fracture, Sean, not only the break, but also, I imagine, the chasing peloton with the main GC favourites for deeper into this race. It's the first of 3 big testing days in the high mountains, and we may well get some answers today.
Yes, well, it's very possible we get answers in the very final of this climb up to Camperona, and we can see there the race is on big time. It has been on for a long time. In the big group out front here, the breakaway, they are pushing on for a long time now, and they still have to keep on pushing. Just under 4 minutes. They're holding on, you know, quite well. It should be enough for some of the riders, and we have some quality riders capable of winning the stage here. But the peloton are really putting it up to them, and Movistar, we can see winner Ancona there. He's driving it on for so many kilometres now. We did see Andre Amador and Erviti went back as well. He was on the front for a while, but other teams as well. We did see Mitchell and Scott. They had a man there for a while. Damien House, and he came to the front, was also involved, and of course Astana. And they're all thinking, I think, of this stage today, but it looks like the breakaway should be able to hold on with this 4 minutes as we get on to the final climb here.
We've had some great anonymous riders today. Think Oran, think Simon Yates, think maybe even Thibaut Pinot, certainly Jon Izagirre. They're all tucked in and just keeping themselves out of the wind and waiting to perform. It's going to be great. 8.1 kilometres to go. We start our climb. Officially, this climb has begun. 8 Ks to go, and it's already being categorized as we speak. These are gentle approach ramps that you're seeing, and Benjamin King comes up to the front as if to say, don't even think about going without me, Thomas de Gent. Well, they've duking it out for mountains points, and no surprise to see Benjamin King up here. 2 stage wins already for the American, and he's after more. And why not? The North Americans have done very well in this part of the world. Think Ryder Ejedal back in the Canadian back in 2014. They take a turn. The approach is now, and in fact it doesn't start to get difficult until we get to 6 kilometres to go. So 1,600 metres before it starts to kick up. It only picks up to about 7.5%. Then it evens out again all the way to 2.8 to go, and then all of a sudden, goodness me, an explosion will occur, I am certain, within both the break and indeed those further back. You make the turn, it's time to take a turn, Sean, and indeed show us exactly what you've got. There's no hiding place on this mountain.
No, there ain't no hiding place in the very final. It's going to be just a fight to get to the line, and you know, the final 3 kilometres, as Alberto Contador said, you know, there's when you get to the 3 kilometres to the 2 kilometre, just never ending, and when you get to the final kilometre to go, it just goes on and on forever, and that's because of the gradient of the climb here. And we can see the peloton still. Cofidis are doing a real good job here. They still have a number of men here in the front, and they have been, you know, riding real strong all day. So with the race leadership with Jesus Harada, they have risen to the occasion as well, and you know, they've put up a real good performance here. Movistar, we would expect them, and the other teams, well, like of Astana, like of Mitchell and Scott, you know, they have got the teams built around the leader. But for Cofidis here, they have really put in a great ride today from the rest of the team, and they have looked after the race leader real well.
Fire put out, as you have seen. Restrepo working for Zakarin. We've seen Jay McCarthy and Bergert as well. Bergert, the bigger figure of the men in the aquamarine and marine and black, working for Rafa Majka, who's just tucked in. Is Mate, King of the Mountains jersey wearer. He who was complaining early on that he's having to do so much work, not only to get into the break, but also to sprint for all of the mountains points. Not sure he's going to be a feature at the pointy end today, because the incline is so punishing. It's going to take uber specialists, of which you have to count Rafa Majka. This terrain really suits him. Although Zakarin has been quiet, Restrepo's been doing the work on his behalf for the men with the pale blue shoulders. Zakarin tucked in as well. And in fact, as you can see, the arms are flicking out, and Restrepo says, come on, let's get some work done as McCarthy comes through. Thomas de Gent has done nothing other than ride up towards the 4. They had a big fighting force with Montfort, Lambrecht, Armé and de Gent for Lotto Soudal. De Gent, I'm not sure, I think he's going to be taking it for himself. Boca Mollema as well. They may well keep it low countries for them. Time then to approach the foot of the climb for those chasing on, and it seems like the kilometers are being eaten up in very rapid fashion. It's because we haven't got to the real punishing part of this test just yet. That'll come in 3 kilometers time, so they're rolling with it for now, Sean, but the knockout blows will come.
Yes, well, there will be knockout blows, and who will be throwing the big punches on this final run into the line, and the final 3 kilometers, that's where the knockouts will be. In the breakaway, of course, now we have this, you know, advantage. It is a nice one to have, and I think with the quality of riders you have up here, there has to be somebody who will be able to hold on and take the stage victory. And then back in the main peloton there, which is, you know, been going so fast for quite a long time now, they are going to also be fighting there. The general classification men, I think, the ones who feel a bit feel good today, they're going to have to try and just test the waters, see what the reaction will be. And you know, you look at the real climbers, Quintana, you look at Lopez, they will be the ones, this final run to the line should suit them perfectly.
First roll of the dice is going to come from Caja Rural, I believe. They're just tucked in here, off the front, being driven by Bora Hansgrohe just for now, along with Lotto Soudal. But they've got Alex Aramburu, and they've also got Christian Rodriguez, both very, very capable young riders. There they are in the dark green, and they're just starting to show their hand. Ravazzi has also come up here in the red helmet, just tucked in behind them for UAE Team Emirates. And Ben Gastow from AG Tour Le Mondial, has been anonymous for much of the day, is also close at hand in the brown and white accents, never to be discounted, I guess you might say. Edward Prades as well, principal for Euskadi Basque, is also there, and Cofidis doing the work, trying to just stay in that red jersey. It was interesting as well to see a big pickup there from Omar Freile, thinking about doing some work for Astana. Anacona has gone backwards, he's done his job. They passed by the 5Ks to go marker. This is our breakaway. The pack a little bit further back, but only 3.5 minutes. They've done a good job of narrowing the gap, and I think that some of the GC men may well jump. I don't think they'll get a stage win, but space, I think, Sean, is going to be found amongst the favourites on this day.
Yes, well, today is a day where we will see the favourites, a little bit of the gaps between them. I don't think there will be huge gaps between anybody, unless somebody, the favourites, really crack a long ways out. But there is definitely will be gaps between the men at the top of the general classification here, the top 15 places in the overall standing. There will be gaps here at the end of the day.
Harada will still lead 3 minutes and 22. He's tucked in with all of they. Ben King still looking for a top 5 if it holds the advantage that he has at the moment. He's up here and wanted a little bit more impetus. It's being driven on at the moment. Nicola Conchi with Boca Mollema tucked in. Some of those, there's your combativity awards writ large for you. It's Thomas de Gent, and he has done his job for the day. Tosh van der Sande is there, leaving Maxime Montfort and Xander Armé up front, I believe. Here's your King of the Mountains jersey holder for now, and Mate Well, you have more grumbles at the dinner table, I am certain. Big pickup by Trek that want to drive this in for Bocca Mollema. But look, still personnel at hand. It's Marcus Berger who's taking Rafa Majka to a good place. Majka bouncing on the pedals, looks nice and calm. And here comes Gorka Izagirre, the Spanish champion, just slowly but surely pacing his way back up out of this pack. It'll be a man that I'm sure Benjamin King will go by. The one-man band they just passed by. We'll possibly see some more of him deeper in this race. You can always hear him. Every instrument played by him, but for somebody it's going to be a symphony of delight by the time we get to the top. 3 minutes and 24 is the gap to the peloton, and there's Majka just off the nose with two Caja Rural riders waiting to pounce and do something for Spain today. But it could well be that it's Poland that are singing, and it'll be Majka's name that rings large if battle plan is executed perfectly. Relentless pace. They're only a kilometre from the real hurt zone, and we look back through this this group here, and we hope they all go well. Sergio Luis now for Team Sky, but wearing the Colombian champions jersey cannot be discounted, and those who've ridden clever, Sean, may well have something left at the end of today.
Yes, well, if you can ride clever and just spare your energy as much as possible, but not easy to do, I think, because everybody was expected to contribute here, only if you had a reason. And of course Mate, he got an easy ride. He's got an easy day because he got into the breakaway. He didn't gain very much for the mountain classification, but he did not have to do the walk back in the main peloton for Herrada, so he's got away lightly today. But we can see there's a lot of men lining up, and it's Burkhardt who is securing the pace. And how long will this go on for? I think into the final 3 kilometres, that's where we'll see the difference. The rider there, Kudos, I'm not sure how good he's going to be. You would expect him to be a good climber. He might be the dark horse for this stage win with the very steep gradient. And you know, the steep gradient here in the final, the lightweight riders, the better climbers of that.
Zakarin, he said, I've had enough of this. I'm out of here. 3.3 kilometres to go. The question is, being asked right now, who can follow him? And he's starting to tempo away. Well, we haven't seen much of the pale blue shoulders, but right now the Russian has decided that he's going to have a dig, and you can see Marcus Burgott going the same way as Jay McCarthy, leaving Rafa Majka to do it all on his own. Well, he's got to. No help out there, and he's tucked in nicely just for the time being, but he's got company, Sean.
Yes, well, Majka, we can see here, he's very active immediately onto the wheel of Zakarin. We can see the rider from BMC, Dylan Tunes, also very active, but a lot of riders here still waiting. And, you know, at this point, you can sit back in 4th, 5th position. We could see Gorka Izagirre there, the Spanish champion, also there in the line. A lot of riders still in here, and yeah, it's going to be now from here on, this final 3 kilometres, that's where we'll see the picture really clear.
Quick step floors, 2 men still up here asking the question, and Benjamin King it is that just sails to the middle line. He wants to join the fun as well. Both Lawrence de Plus and Peter Seri for quick step floors are up here. Abundance of riches within that team, it seems, and indeed starting to shine in all terrain. Majka takes a little gel right now, just wants some sustenance for the final task at hand. Freire is that's leading everyone else in here, and look who's coming up. Here comes Jon Izagirre with Gorka up the road, but most notably Rigoberto Urán, just about to be slungshot away. I think there's going to be a proper skirmish behind. 3 minutes adrift of these guys. Benjamin King is that's up and up towards the 4 as well, riding very strongly, despite the efforts he's put in on 2 breakaway days where he made it count on stages 4 and 9. Can he do it again? 2.6 kilometres then, and this is where it starts to hurt. It really picks up, as you can see, and indeed you might even hear the motorcycles starting to splutter and cough out there. We're going to get to 24% at its worst.
Yes, and we can see here in the front of the race at the breakaway what's left of the 32 riders. A lot of riders have done their job here. They've been working very hard. We see Burkhardt there coming to a standstill, but Majka is the one who starts to push on here, and you know, they have to start moving now. If you're feeling good, well, then you have to try and make a selection at this point with just 2.4 to the finish.
It's Dylan Turns on the back of Micah's wheel at the moment. King picks up as well, and Zakharin's been drawn out. Zakharin with a K on his back. King wearing the white combined jersey for now, and there it is. Halper, Joey Roscoff just chugging away back here, and the ambitions of both of the youngsters from Caja Rural in the green also have been burnt. And look at the kick on the road here, and it is Micah that's kicking away, and look at that. It's Mohawi Kudus that's actually chasing him down. Apologies for that. He bridges over, and he's burning everybody else out there. Kudus could be a spectacular pick today.
Yes, and we can see there Dylan Tunes from BMC Racing, Zakharin fourth on the road there from Katouche Albacin, but Micah looking impressive here. He's pushing on, but Kudus, you know, coming back to them there in the wheel and having a look around there, so he looks okay for the moment, but still on this steep gradient with 2 kilometers to go. As we heard from Alberto Contador, it just feels so long. It never ends, this final 2 kilometers.
Do you remember Kudus when he had a handsome advantage a couple of years ago in this race, and Lutsenko, in fact it was last year, Lutsenko mugged him on the final climb. Nobody could understand how Lutsenko, who climbs like a brick, had what it took to beat Mohawi Kudus. Well, second chance for Kudus then, the youngster from Eritrea, and he's here on a good wheel with Rafa Micah. I remember that incline, it was a hellish one up to Akuzabere. Well, maybe today. Oh, and suddenly he starts to go backwards, but is it just a case of everyone else having more of what it is required? Micah is the only man, it seems, as Zakharin plonks himself back down in the saddle as well. Sean, this is a grind, and at the moment, it's Micah driving everyone into dust. He looks spectacular.
Yes, he looks good, but how much is he given? Because you have to keep a little bit in reserve here all the time. Inside the 2 kilometers to go, we can see there that Dylan Tunes from BMC looks like he's getting into the rhythm, and you know, if you just go that little bit deep and you go close to in the red, as they say in cycling terms, then you can pay for a bit further up. But it looks like at Micah for the moment he looks the strongest one.
Kreiswijk up as part of this group as well. Simon Yates likewise just ready to pounce. In fact, he's doing it for himself just for now. They're 3 minutes back. There's Kwiatkowski as well, who looks reasonably fresh, and while they look at each other, it opens up opportunities for others to have a big old dig, and why not? But our focus remains on Micah. Looking back, it's still not over for Kudus, but picking it up is Edward Prades for Uskadi as well in the acid green, starting to think about making a move. As we come back to this group, there is Rigoberto Urán starting to pick his way through traffic, getting onto the back wheel of Thibaut Pinot through that group. 1.6 kilometers to go, and they're all looking. Satellite rider being offered up here for Simon Yates. Will he take it? Right now, doing a terrific job is Dylan Turns, taking his turn on the front, just ahead of Micah, and they're weaving, and there's no reason why not. There's no shame in that. This is a tougher incline as you're likely to come across in the world of cycling. 24%. That's no laughing matter. It averages out over the 100 meters to just shy of 20%, but nonetheless, this is a zone of hurt, and we all know about it. We've been talking about it all day. Well, let your legs do the talking, and Simon Yates is doing a good job, and it's Quintana that's sat on his back wheel. Well, we said there'd be a separation, Sean, and the GC men would start to thin down, and the quality is floating to the top of this group.
Yes, and we can see Yus Harado here just in a little bit of difficulty off the group of main favourites. They are losing a couple of bike lengths at the moment, and we can see it's Jack Haig from Michelin Scott. He came to the front there, took 2 or 3 bike lengths, was looking around, and just knocked it back a bit. But now he has, you know, Yates in his wheel, and he's starting to push on here. But we can see this is going to, you know, blow this group apart because of the gradient.
Turns versus Micah at the moment, and there's no respite. The last couple of ramps here are absolutely punishing. They're coming to one of the steepest parts of the climb right now. If you think it was steep until this point, then think again, and just listen to the wail of the motorcycles gears here. They're in trouble. It's difficult even to walk walk up this slope. And at the moment, Jack Haig's doing a great job of pacing everybody. Valverde's there in the green jersey with Quintana on his wheel in the blue with the white M. You can see as well, just getting up here is Wilco Kelderman onto the shoulder of Rigoberto Urán, who's still bouncing nicely. They're tucked in and ready to have a fight of their own, but these guys are just battling gravity, Sean. This is hellish.
Yes, it is a real killer here, and they are on the real steep percentage here. You know, we did see 24%, so they're definitely, you know, on this section here 16%, but there's a lot of more difficult sections to come, and you can see there, you know, the heli shot, you can see how difficult it is. This straight section, then a corner, another straight section. This is going to go on forever, and you can, you know, it's taken so long to get this final 2 kilometers over it, and we're still 1.3 kilometers from the finish.
Well, a man in Bora livery just offers up some encouragement here to Rafa Majka, and he tucks in on the back wheel of Dylan Teuns. I think that's Edward Prolas who's just coming up. Spectacular ride by him for Euskadi Basque, and it may well be we have a Spanish stage win here, because he's just about to bridge to this pair, unless one of them is sandbagging ever so gently. High security here, keeping the road clear with hyper enthusiastic fans, and a lot of respect being shown to the riders. Don't touch the riders, let them do their own thing. And Euskadi Basque with a fine performance here, Sean, just to grind back in, and it's in fact Rodriguez that has come over here for the Euskadi Basque team. They had 3 in the break, not Edward Prolas has declared, apologies for that, but another young rider making a name for himself here, Sean, and he will be suffering, Oscar. He's there though. Meanwhile, further back here, that's Kelderman in the black and white with Simon Yates just on his wheel, also tucked in. Look, Quintana, and looked in a reasonably happy place as well. They've got to show themselves, show their hand. Again, about to be tagged here along with the King of the Mountains jersey wearer, Luis Angel Mates, in the blue polka dots. And round these curves, they continue to grind. Urán staying with it. Kelderman looks good. Simon Yates still there with the blue jersey of Quintana just on his wheel. Quintana's got to stop waiting and do it for himself, and he can take a leaf out of a young man's book here. 23 years of age, Oscar Rodriguez, and he's leading everyone else in his wake. This is a spectacular performance by the young rider here. Well, he can do it on occasion. In fact, he showed his hand in the Castile y Leon last year, the Alentejo stage as well. He went extraordinarily well this year, but this is well beyond his remit. Well, he's a right to fight, Sean, and right now he's battling the incline, and with 906 metres to go, less than that with every pedal stroke. Flamme Rouge, in fact, are only now just being declared, but GPS tells us he's got a shorter way home than that. It's going to feel an awful long way. Can he possibly grab this one as a young rider in this sort of company? That would be amazing.
Well, he's looking good, and we did see him there. He just on the climb, he seemed to get into his rhythm, left the other 2 riders, Majka and Dylan Teuns, just go away from a little bit, and got into his rhythm and slowly just pegged them back, and then got back and went on. Looks like he could be able to hold on, because I think the other 2 have given quite a big effort there, and Oscar Rodriguez looking real good.
Yeah, indeed. No contract for next year. I can hear checkbooks opening as we speak. 775 metres, a little less than that for the man out front, Oscar Rodriguez. Majka in his wake. Majka is the sort of rider who can re-find his rhythm. We'll wait and see. Security again at this corner, and some of the hoardings need to be remodified, I think it's fair to say. This man at the moment is just sending a golden thread through every single one of these curves. It's a spectacular moment for him, and look how high we are. That's the high ground that we've kicked up in only the last 5 kilometers, and he's starting to smile as well. My goodness, the smiling assassin. And here comes Urán just up onto the wheel of Quintana. Is he finally going to invest something, Quintana? He always follows, always plays cagey, but you've got to reach out for glory on occasion. He's always worried about who he is dragging along. hard to read facially, I'm afraid, Quintana, not least from this distance, of course, but Simon Yates is still rolling by the barriers. You can see that just on his shoulder is Uran, who seems to be strengthening day by day. A man who had to leave the Tour, of course, due to a crash and indeed illness. But what can he do today? And indeed, what can these guys do to catch the man who's up the road? That's the big question. Micah versus Dylan Teuns, and it looks like Micah's got the strength, at least for now, but has he got the strength to get back at Oscar Rodriguez, who checks over his shoulder, and that's the last thing he needs to do. He needs to get his head down and stop worrying about those guys and add a little bit of impetus. Oh, and that looks like, I'm afraid, Lopez has been tagged here by somebody, I think, in the crowd. Too many flags about, can easily get into Yemek. Spinning his up right now is Micah. Can he possibly bridge over to the youngster here? Oscar Rodriguez doing it for himself and potentially doing it for the furtherance of his career. No contract for him next year, but I imagine he'll have one by the end of the day. But Micah is starting to pick it up and he's guiding Dylan Teuns, is he? No, and Micah's doing it for himself at 14 and 15%. It does ease to about 11. That's going to feel almost like flat compared to what we've done, but it's not a flat performance from this man. It's a spectacular one. Is he going to get there? 200 metres though, 175. Count him in. What a story this will be for this man and indeed for his team. Euskadi Basque, well, he is stretching his legs, and I'm afraid for everybody else, he is going to win this one. Micah's going to be nearest to him, and there's a GC battle that's still to be raged behind, I can tell you. Well, right now, Micah looks like this stage is not going to come his way, but he's done a great job of moving himself back up into our thoughts, deeper into this race. But all hail this man, a young prince, king for the day, Sean, top of the hill. This has got to feel fantastic, and he's realising he's done a career best here. Maybe it's the first of many. We shall see. We salute Oscar Rodriguez. What a ride. Almost comes to a standstill, Sean. That's how tough that was. And look at who he's left in his wake.
Yes, well, what a ride. And he rode really tactically real good, because in the earlier part when Micah really pushed on with Dylan Teuns, he just got into his rhythm there, got into his own pace, and slowly just started to walk away back to them. And then when he got back, just went on and continued on that real strong pace. But of course you have to be real good to do that, and he was just the strongest man on this real leg breaker of a finish.
Here we are. As we look back, we pick out, of course, Quintana and Simon Yates, and there's not much conversation going on between the pair of them. Quintana looks the more relaxed, I would say, but you can never, it's always difficult to read Simon Yates, because he's got a great deal of strength and of will, apart from anything else. Look at this, it's fresh as a daisy. Oscar Rodriguez, considering what he's done, and there is Gorka Izagirre just starting to twist and weave here. He'll be looking for his brother, and I can't see him within that group from Bahrain Merida. It looks like Jon Izagirre is the big loser today, I'm afraid. Gorka's waiting up for him, still going forward, but waiting for his brother to try and put a fire out. Meanwhile, Quintana here just bouncing alongside Simon Yates, just watching each other, and Gorka Izagirre looks like he's in a slow bicycle race, trying to wait and offer up something to his brother, and there is his brother right now. Gorka will try and help out Jon, but he's got a long wait. Looking at this group as well, Kruiswijk is in here, and so many other principals, including Rigoberto Urán, and the camera's gone long here to try and pick up Jon Izagirre. Meanwhile, Quintana and Yates here, Sean, just bouncing their way home. Are they going to make it?
Yes, well, it looks like that they're looking at each other. As we can see, Mas here, Eric Mas from Quick Step Floors, he's just sitting on here, and nobody want to commit here. We can see Simon Yates is just looking at Quintana there and making Quintana just do the pushing. They have that here doesn't look much. That's going to be 15, 20 plus seconds at the line.
Pino just takes off out of that group, and Valverde marks him out as well, just behind, looking through past these pair. Doesn't offer up much of a screen, Quintana, but he's emerged from behind one, I guess you might say, and he wants some space out here, and he's going to get some. Others from the break just finishing here, but Quintana crosses the line right now. Count it back. It's going to be 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds back to Simon Yates. There comes Mas crossing the line right now. This is Thibaut Pinot that's lit it up. That, I think, is Lopez, as he managed to pick himself back up after taking a tumble. We'll wait and see. Other big names starting to grind into this. Oran's part of this group as well, along with Kruijswijk. They cross the line right now. Goodness me, and we look further back as well for Jon Izagirre's brother. Gorka has dropped back to help pace him in and try and limit the damage. He'll have some fun when it comes to the time trial, but he's got 2 nightmare days of climbing as well. Brotherly love on display here and brotherly assistance as the Izagirres cross the line right now together, and they come almost to a standstill. This, let there be no doubt, was a very tough day, and we've got 2 more, some would say even more difficult, still to come before the rest day, Sean.
Yes, well, we did see that the gaps did appear there, and we could see that, you know, Tony Galopin just coming in there with the 2 Izagirre brothers. We could see George Bennett as well, a little bit further off there. So yeah, definitely some time difference, and when you look at the riders coming in there, it doesn't look a lot, but it's rapidly 15 seconds plus when you have a little bit of a gap between the riders. So as we said, you know, it was going to make a selection, not a huge one, but still we have seen the stronger men in Quintana showing his hand, and Simon Yates, you know, very impressive there to match Quintana all the way.
You just saw Kwiatkowski coming across the line as well. I thought he might pick up today, but clearly the fatigue of the season is a big one. Time to stretch yourself out. Suggestion that there may well have been a little bit of cramp towards the end there. But Quintana, of the main players, has done a spectacular job. And you see them waddle. That was Jesus Herrada just coming across the line, and a big deficit. I'm actually thinking he will hold on to his leader's jersey. Meanwhile, Quintana, after stretching himself out, now cools down on the rollers. What a day, Sean.
Well, what a day, and what a difficult final here. The final 3 kilometres, you know, the real killer here, that percentage. It's so hard when you have to fight it all the way to the line. You know, you get onto the climb, you're led on by a big bunch of riders that have really fast pace, and then you have to, you know, hold your position. And, you know, when you get onto the final 3 kilometres, you just have to go so deep. And we could see some riders coming over the line totally empty, as we can see is Herrada coming over there. There's Izagirre brothers, Jon Izagirre, really just totally empty getting to the finish line.
Yep, indeed, he ceded 45 seconds to Quintana. That is a country mile, and of course he may well have an advantage when it comes to time trialing, but he's got more mountains days to come. Rodriguez takes the day. Oscar, he deserves one. That was a spectacular performance, but you have to say that it's starting to look ever more like Quintana's race. He looked spectacular. Wonderful day of racing here at La Vuelta. Wow, what a winner. All credit to him, and indeed to this invitee team of Euskadi Basque. They played an absolute blinder today, and what a sort out we had amongst the GC men as well. You've got to love the Vuelta.